Between the two of them.
The inside of Coates.
Parker gets too heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome along to the VRRC and the start of the second half of the season in the VRRC Touring Car Cup. And it's the second part of our German doubleheader. A week ago, most of us were at virtual Nürburgring for a bit of street circuit action being the accurate word, I believe. Now we head to the slightly more open but still equally challenging Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit, nestled in the Eiffel Mountain area of Germany. Andy McEwan back with you again this week, thankfully, in the commentary box, joined by Jack Oliphant, with Lewis Edwards controlling the broadcast as always. I sadly couldn't be with you a week ago, and I believe, Jack Oliphant, that I missed quite a lot of action.
You did, but we had we actually replaced you, Andy. So yeah, no one's irreplaceable here at VRRC. We got Ethan Hill coming in actually for a couple of about half a race, or the majority of the second race actually, due to the fact that his car crashed out or his computer died or something along those lines. But yeah, so we had a nice chat with Ethan Hill, which is quite entertaining. But it is delightful to have you back, and hopefully we'll be together for the last half of the season, which you can see on your screens now. Actually, we're obviously kicking it off with the Nürburgring here tonight, and then off to Barcelona for Catalonia, and then Imola, and of course rounding out the season at Brands Hatch, the full GP circuit. We're not messing around with any indie stuff here. The TC, I was about to say the wrong abbreviation there, but the Touring Car Championship. So yeah, it should be a really good way to end off the season.
I'm trying not to take it personally that at the mention of Ethan Hill's name, we're getting chants of Ethan in chat. I'm going to choose to not take that personally. What I will do is look back at the races that I wasn't here for a week ago at the Nürburgring, and I can tell you it was Elliot Dalton-Ayres who came out on top. Points were tallied up from the two races. It was Elliot who had two second-placed finishes who came out with the most points. Joel Lask was the second highest point scorer. That was significant for his championship prospects. Likewise, Kyle Felvers, who with a seventh and a third place finish over the two races, that wouldn't necessarily sound all that impressive, but it was enough to give him not only the third highest points haul for the night, but to move him back in to the championship lead as we arrive here at the Nürburgring. But as you can see, Jack, it's rather tight.
It is absolutely. Carl Felvers just on top of Scott Bugner, it seems, by 2 points. And then there's quite a little close scrap for third place as well, with actually the margin being even closer between Eric Axelsson and Josh Martin. Eric Axelsson, I don't think he particularly enjoyed his time at the Nürburgring. He obviously didn't enjoy his Paul Ricard visit either. So that's what's really hampering him in this championship. Just goes to show that no one is indestructible, though, and everybody's got a chance. Josh Martin has picked up some solid points as we get into the season. He's in fourth with Joel Lask, obviously doing particularly well last week, jumping ahead of the likes of Nicky Taylor. Elliot Dalton-Ayres swooning his way up into the top 10 quite nicely as well with 60 points. And obviously, though, it's very, very tight between 6th and 10th place, just separated by 3 points.
Yes, I believe the positions on that graphic are correct, but I think maybe something's gone a bit amiss with dropped scores. So it is Felvers leading, but actually by 10 points, according to the website. So he's 10 points ahead of Scott Bugner, who is then 6 ahead of Axelsson and Martin, who are tied for third. So the order you see on that screen is absolutely correct, but the actual gaps are perhaps a little bit more comfortable than that graphic might suggest. But it's all going to change anyway as we move into these final 4 weeks of racing, especially once you start taking into account the drop score system, which of course we will have to really start thinking about over the next few weeks. At the end of it all, in another 4 weeks' time, there'll be some lovely prizes that will be handed out to our top drivers, the top 3 in the championship come season's end. Will all receive Aegon gaming displays, the 24-inch display for the third place driver, second place receiving the 27-inch display, and our champion will get the 34-inch curved gaming display courtesy of our championship sponsors Aegon. All of them get a trophy, as indeed, or receiving a medal at least, is our driver of the round, chosen by us with occasionally some input from the YouTube chat. So if there's someone who jumps out at you over the course of tonight's 2 races as being the star driver of the round, then let us know what you think, and they may well be the recipient of that prize. Right then, qualifying coming up very shortly here from the Nürburgring, but before we jump into the session, let's take a closer look at the track.
Hello and welcome to the 5th round of the Aegon by AOC Touring Car Championship Season 3. We're here at the Nürburgring on the GP layout. Heading into turn 1, you want to brake at the 100-metre board, down to second gear, really use as much curb as you can on the inside and keep it quite far to the right so that we can open up turn 2 quite nicely here. It's all about balancing the power through here, getting the power nice and early. You can use quite a bit of this AstroTurf, be careful on the track limits. Really difficult corner here. You want to kind of use the curb to hook the car around, but stay left to open up this right-hander. Be really careful of the track limits on the exit here. Heading now on the run up to turn 5, we get the sector split just here. We go down 2 gears, taking a slightly later apex, powering through the corner to get back over to the left-hand side for turn 6. Take a really nice late apex there and carry good speed on the exit. You probably could use up a bit more of the runoff there if you wanted to. Into turn 7, really tricky corner here as you're trying to start turning while braking. Get a little bit of a slide, but we gather it up quite nicely. We get back to the power, using up all of the roads we can. Up to the Schumacher S's now. Not quite flat out, you're going to need a little lift and a touch of brake just to get it round. Try and avoid using the grass as that will cut your momentum ever so slightly. Now go back over to the right hand side for turn 10. Brake as the Astro starts on the right hand side. Be very careful, the back end does like to step out on you there. And we now go into turn 11. This one's really important to get a good exit as we've got a long flat out section here. As we now come up to turn 12, which is easily flat out. This is where we might see some overtaking moves in the race. Back over to the right hand side. You want to brake it at about 125 meters down to second gear. Use as much of this curb as you can get away with, but then don't use the sausage curb on the right as that will slow your momentum down. As we head now towards the final corner, you want to keep it in third gear, keep the momentum nicely back to the power and use up all of the road that we can on the exit. And that is a lap of the Nürburgring.
So the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit sitting next to the iconic Nordschleife. This perhaps lacks some of the challenge of the famed Green Hell, but it's still a really fun circuit, one I always enjoy driving, and it should, I think, Jack, produce some good racing. There are plenty of places that you can not only launch an attack, but actually run door to door for several corners at a time.
I've had this debate quite a few times, actually live on air sometimes with go-karting, about the best F1 tracks, and there's always a debate what should be dropped and what should be added in. The Nürburgring GP is always top of the list for me, that and Turkey, to be added into any Grand Prix calendar. It's brilliant circuit. I love driving it. I think the racing's really good. I don't think I've ever been disappointed when I've watched racing around here in Formula 1 or anything like that. I don't like the Nordschleife, so I always prefer it when we go to the actual GP loop. And yeah, I think it's a cracking circuit, and I think we've done it quite a few times. Actually, my first ever broadcast of VRRC was actually around the Nürburgring and Audi TTs and the League of Legends. Not League of Legends, that's a video game. League of Champions back in the day. So yeah, great circuit.
I'm sorry, I've got to unpack this. I know qualifying is underway. Nicky Taylor's on provisional pole. We'll let you know if that changes. Why don't you like the Nordschleife?
I don't like the Nordschleife because, one, I can't drive it very well, which is always a good reason not to like something. And two, when you commentate on it, like whenever you do a 20-minute, 30-minute race, it's just horrendously boring, I find, especially on sim racing. In real life, it is one of the best places, I'm guessing, you can ever go, and one of the best spectacles you can ever see in racing, because it is so on the edge. But in sim racing, I've just never got on with it.
Right, that's really interesting. I've never claimed to be very good there, but I don't know. It's up there for me with my favourite places to sim race. I'd actually rather sim race it than drive my real car.
Now that I can understand. I can understand that. Have you ever commentated that?
I'm afraid not. No, the Nürburgring 24 is high on my list of events I want to get to, though. That is just peak motorsport madness.
Absolutely.
That event. So one not to be missed. As I said that we'd let you know if anything changed, Jack Smith immediately, he's clearly read the script for tonight, went and stuck it on pole position at 2 minutes 7.234, 1/100th of a second quicker than Nicky Taylor, with Andy Dorman in third. Dorman's had his moments, hasn't he, this season, where that VW Golf has been quick, and it looks like it's pretty rapid again here today. Josh Martin fourth, Joel Lask in fifth position. you have to go all the way down to 15th at the moment to find the points leader Kyle Felvers, and Scott Bugner second in the points, only one place ahead of him, but I don't think either of them have yet set a representative lap time.
No, it's, yeah, a couple of drivers out of position with only 3 minutes or less than 4 minutes to go, actually, now. It's starting to get a bit squeaky bum time, isn't it? You need to be able to set that time and set it legally, of course. It might be the case of they've put in some good times, but track limits have played a part. And I reckon that chicane, Andy, I mean, there's variations of the chicane here, the Nürburgring GP, isn't there? But that's potentially, if you cut the corner too much, might be getting pinged for track limits as Nicky Taylor gets himself back on pole position.
Yes, he does. Nicky Taylor looking well up for the fight then. Jack Smith second, Dorman third, but just about to complete a lap time, and that might have been Bugner behind him. So let's see what happens here. Paolo Tempera jumps up into 7th position in the Honda. And what about that group of cars behind? Andy Dorman comes through. Scott Bugner improves to 6th. Dorman stays in 3rd, but Scott Bugner up into 6th position. Kyle Felvers, I think, just completed a lap, and he's still, confusingly, Jack, 1.5 seconds off the pace.
Yeah, that is confusing. I don't know where he is in terms of the pack. I don't know if we've seen him and I've just been looking at my timing screens or something like that, but maybe it's just a case of he can't quite get the lap together. There he is, in fact. He is following some cars, so even if he couldn't quite learn the track yet, he is able to follow and he should be able to learn against the drivers that are ahead of him. But it does seem that he's really struggling here, and outside the top 10, not going to do his championship any favours. He does have that little bit of a buffer. Remember, it's 10 points now, not 2 points like we were reading out earlier. But it's still not ideal for him. And in fact, who was in second in the championship? We're Scott Bugner, isn't it? And again, well, 6th place. I mean, almost halfway up the grid compared to Kyle.
Yes, Kyle does have that 10-point buffer over Scott Bugner. What he also has is a very good excuse for being off the pace, because Rich Hayden notifies us that Kyle spent all day today in hospital with a badly sprained hand, which I would imagine is not ideal for sim racing or indeed doing anything with your hands. So Kyle Felvers struggling a little bit in tonight's qualifying session. So we shall see. This could prove to be a pivotal night of racing. Remember, they all get to drop one round, so essentially one entire night of racing they can forget ever happened, gets deleted from their points tally. So if Kyle were to have a slightly lower scoring night tonight, wouldn't necessarily be the end of the world. But Scott Bugner definitely needs to try and take advantage of that, whilst his opponent is perhaps off the pace a little bit. Eric Axelson, of course, the other championship frontrunner, third at the moment in the points, and he sits 5th in this qualifying session, riding on board with Kyle Felvers, who I would imagine, Jack, will have his force feedback switched right down.
Yeah, I don't know, driver excuses, isn't it? They come up with all these things in the book. It's being in hospital. No, I'm kidding, obviously. We wish Kyle the very, very best, and we'll be keeping a close eye on him, but we will give him some slack, although he doesn't need it, because he's promoted himself up into the top 10 at least. It was 6th for a very short period of time. Most importantly, ahead of Scott Bugner, he still sits in 7th place. And I was just about to say, in terms of drop scores, Felvers' drop score is still better than Bugner's. So realistically, even if Felvers has a disaster tonight, which is pretty understandable, he has a drop score of 24 points, which is still not the end of the world. It's not ideal, but it's not the end of the world back at Paul Ricard. So yeah, Kyle, well done for turning up, but make sure your force feedback is turned down a little bit.
Very good point, actually, yes. So a 5-point difference there in what they're dropping. That sort of halves that difference, doesn't it? Because Kyle is dropping 5 more points than Bugner is right now. Joel Lask we're following round on this lap. This looks like an outlap from the pit lane, or at least it's a 3-minute plus lap. So I don't think he's going to get back to the line anyway before the time ticks down to 0, because that's now only 7 seconds away. So Lask looks as though he will be staying down in 9th. Apparently he's on a lap, but the timing system is glitching, just to add extra confusion. He was on a lap until he went on the grass going through the Schumacher S's, which should have invalidated the lap time. You can get away with a bit of track limits, as you can see there on the braking zone into the Michelin curve, but not through the chicane, I would imagine. No, apparently it is still valid, so what do I know? You can go rally crossing through the Schumacher S's and still keep your lap time running. So the time ticks down to 0, checkered flag is waving, and we will wait to see if there are any late improvers.
Yeah, it's. I'm still impressed with Andy Dorman up there. I think he had a bit of a torrid time at the Norris Ring. Jack Smith's on a quick lap, like we mentioned. Joel Lask is on a quick lap. Paul Laramie and Sam Zera both set green sectors. John Jones as well, who is a bit of an interesting character in the second race, shall we say. His driving style was a bit erratic, but as Paolo Tempera comes across the line first. He maintains 6th position. Andy Carroll, Nicky Taylor is not able to improve on his time, so he may well be a sitting duck to the likes of Jack Smith in a couple of turns' time. Eric Axelsson gets himself up to 4th as Ethan Hill and Andy Carroll aren't improving yet, as we see Jack Smith coming up to the final corner. Andy, he's on a quick lap.
Let's see how quick it is then. A 2 minute 7.199 to beat. He needs to find only 36 1,000ths of a second to beat it. But I don't think yes, he has done it by nearly a 1/10 of a second. Jack Smith on pole position, and that will please him, because I know Jack's been a bit frustrated of late. Whenever there's been an incident, he always seems to be involved in it somehow. It doesn't often seem to be his fault, just wrong place, wrong time, and I suppose the best way to avoid all of that is to qualify on pole, which is what he's doing at the moment by a 1/10 of a second. Josh Martin, realistically, the last man who could beat him, but he's nearly half a second off pole position as he rattles over those curbs through the chicane and makes his way towards the final corner. This long looping right-hander at Coca-Cola curve. Out onto the pit straight he will come. The start-finish line, or the timing line at least, is quite a long way down this straight, and 2 minutes 7.6 is the eventual lap time, so not an improvement. So it's Jack Smith then provisionally, or does now look like he's on the pole position for race number 1, with Nicky Taylor alongside, 2 drivers with lots of points to try and score tonight to dig themselves back into championship contention. We will hear from Jack Smith and have all of the build-up for race 1 in just a minute's time. One of the most competitive qualifying sessions of the season so far has just been completed here in the VRRC Touring Car Championship at the Nürburgring, and it sees Jack Smith on pole position for, I believe, the first time this season. Jack joins us now in the commentary box. Jack, I don't think we've had this conversation before after qualifying, so that must be your first time on pole position. How was the lap? How did it feel for you?
Yeah, no, first time in this series, so it's a good feeling. I didn't have as much practice as I wanted to have, but it's turned out quite well in qualifying. I was quite consistent with my quali lap, so yeah, I was quite happy shutting in a low 7 and just hoping it put me up there, and it seemed to have done the job. But yeah, the lap was really good. First sector was a bit iffy, but the last sector put it all together. So yeah, can ask for more.
I know it's been a bit of a frustrating season at times for you. Obviously, you're making a bit of a return to VRRC competition. We haven't seen you racing for the last couple of seasons. Has it been tougher than you expected coming back?
It's I sort of expected this sort of levels coming from the other touring car series that we did, but yeah, it's been tough. All the guys have improved massively since I last raced them. So yeah, it's been a big challenge, big wake up call, and yeah, just learning new things every race. So
you've also been fairly unlucky, I think it's worth saying. If I was saying during the qualifying session, if ever there was an incident, it does seem that you're in the vicinity, not really at fault, but just sort of in the wrong place at the wrong time. The best way to avoid that is to start from pole position. So I guess the game plan here is get off the line well and disappear.
Yeah, I'll try my best, keep my head forward and not really look in my mirror too much. But yeah, as you said, it's been a bit unlucky this season. A few incidents caused by myself, which I don't know what really occurred at Norrisring there, but yeah, we move on, and yeah, we'll see what we can do in this race.
So we'll let you go and prepare, but congratulations on that first pole position of the season.
Cool. Cheers, Andy.
So Jack Smith will start from pole for our first race of 2 here tonight, and he sounds reasonably confident there, I think, Jack, ahead of the first of 2 races tonight. But Jack Oliphant getting off the line is going to be absolutely crucial.
It is, and we all know that Eric Axelsson is a bit of a master at that, and he's not on the front row, unusually, because obviously normally he's right there, and we see him get an absolute bolster start up towards the first corner, and he's in first place regardless of where he starts, first or second. From 4th on the grid, I would expect it, if anything, to make it 3 wide. It's a really sharp braking zone, and it's pretty downhill. You have to be slightly careful. Cold brakes, cold tyres. Obviously, a very, very tight corner. And with any luck, they'll be a bit more sensible about it, because it is a bit tempting to go for a full-on dive bomb up that inside. A little bit like Spa at La Source. It can catch a few people out if you're a little bit too brave.
Absolutely. And one thing you can always guarantee from these drivers is they'll never, ever go for a dive bomb. Rich Hayden, what do you think about the first corner here at the Nürburgring? I predict a little bit of action.
I predict a riot. Yes, we've had a conversation in the driver briefing about T1 and then the complex of corners after it as well. So, yeah, it's. I mean, look, everybody's going to have cold tyres, cold brakes going into T1. It's a bottleneck, isn't it? And also, you know, from T2, 3, and 4, where it starts to open up again, is going to be tight. And we have had incidents in the past there, but so all drivers have been reminded that they need to brake slightly earlier than usual. And give space.
Interesting grid for this first race, Rich. Quite a few drivers near the front who haven't necessarily had the best of seasons and therefore have less to lose. It is, though, a good chance for people like Jack and Nicky to go and score some good points.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, you know, Jack's a great driver, and he's just, as you've been saying, he's been caught up in a bit of bad luck. But also, as he said, you know, everybody else has improved their games since he was with us last. Really good to see Andy Dormer up the front as well. Andy's a fast driver. Bit surprised to see Eric back in 4th. I thought he was going to be further to the front, but Nicky Taylor put in some absolutely stellar laps in practice. So for Jack to come in and take the pole from Nicky is obviously a disappointment to Nicky, but shows how good Jack is.
Rich, thank you for your thoughts as always. We'll let you go and prepare yourself for the race as well, because we're not that far away from getting underway.
Thank you very much. See you later.
So, what do you reckon, Jack? I think this will be a very interesting race. The qualifying times are very close, which is always a good sign.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a bit chaotic, like we just mentioned in the first couple of corners, but we won't harp on too much about that because we're hoping that it doesn't actually make any kind of difference. When it comes to the second race, I think we'll probably be talking about it a little bit more with that full reverse grid, obviously. Having a look at seeing if anybody's out of position. We're talking about Kyle Felvers and Scott Bugner, arguably, behind Paolo Tempera. Paolo was relatively quick last week at the Norrisring from memory, but 6th place in qualifying is certainly, I think, his highest that I remember in this particular season anyway. So, yeah, he's done pretty well. Joel Lask down in 9th place, Ethan Hill in 10th, and Elliot Dalton-Ayres, who obviously took home the most amount of points last week at the Norrisring, and driver of the round, I believe, and he's all the way down in 11th. So even though it's not a reverse grid, there is plenty of stories all throughout. It's going to be very entertaining, not only at the front.
It is indeed, and it's a significant pair of races, this, in the championship. 8 races to go in this championship campaign, and at the moment, those top 4 drivers in the championship covered by just 16 points, and a couple of them, all of them really, starting a little bit further than they'd like. The red lights are going on then. On the right, on pole, is Jack Smith. On the left is Nicky Taylor. Will it be one of the Hyundais that leads them into turn 1? That looks likely because Jack Smith is off the line really well from pole position. Kyle Felvers and Scott Bugner there chopping across in front of each other as they run towards turn 1. It is a long downhill run into this really tricky braking zone, but Jack Smith arrives there single file actually, with Taylor in 2nd, Dorman 3rd, Axelsson looking to the inside. Kyle Felvers was going up the middle of everybody, and now we hold our breath. Do they all emerge on the other side? Somehow, I think they do. 1 or 2 running wide, but that was actually a clean first corner.
Yeah, they must have actually listened to Rich Hayden for once. I don't know why anybody would do that, but it's clearly worked for them. Jack Smith, getting a little bit of pressure though from Nicky Taylor, who's clambering all over the curves to try and get the better run on his front row compatriot, shall we say. There has been a little bit of movement further back as people drop up and down the order through the first couple of corners, but like Andy said, no real massive dramas at the front or even towards the back. I think we've still got everybody running pretty much single file all the way down the grid, whereas normally we are used to seeing at least one spinner, Andy, aren't we? So don't want to tempt fate, but a very good start so far.
It has been. I mentioned that Carl Felvers was trying to go up the middle into turn one. That didn't work. He's now up the inside of Paolo Tempera, who actually got ahead of him going into that first turn. So Scott Bugner did briefly have a car between himself and Felvers, but Carl makes a nice move there down into the hairpin at the bottom of the circuit and moves back into 7th. So Bugner 6th, Felvers 7th. They've got Josh Martin and Eric Axelson ahead. So actually the top 4 in the championship running 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th, but not in championship order, in almost reverse championship order, actually. At the head of the field, though, look how close it is. Jack Smith and Nicky Taylor already starting to distance themselves slightly from Dorman, but the Hyundais couldn't be closer.
No, and Rich was actually getting a little bit excited about the prospect of Nicky Taylor versus Jack Smith, and you can understand why as they head up towards the chicane. Jack Smith looking like he's going slightly defensive, just trying to fend off Nicky Taylor's attempt to go up the inside. There's not really much of an overtaking manoeuvre, I don't think, through those chicanes, especially early on in this race. We might see a few desperate moves later on as drivers try and score the most amount of points possible. But at the moment, Nicky Taylor is happy to just sit in the slipstream of Jack Smith, it seems, and maybe try and find out where he's a little bit quicker than the first place driver out on the track, because, of course, that is crucial when going into overtakes.
Yeah, these two have also been very evenly matched all season, haven't they? They've had quite a few ding-dong battles. Paul Ricard, I seem to recall them spending the entire night locked in combat. So, expecting this to be another close race. That's Scott Bugner. That was his teammate, wasn't it? Going slowly as well. Did those two tangle? Joel Lask and Scott Bugner? I think it might have been. We're getting reports from Lewis Edwards that they have indeed clashed, and that puts Bugner down in 9th.
Yeah, big news in terms of championship standings, isn't it? And Carl Felvers, who did manage to get past Paolo Tempera, will be absolutely loving that. Up to 6th place, and it's a struggle now for Scott Bugner to try and clamber up some of those places, because Elliot Daltonaire's Paolo Tempera is now in between them, and those drivers are not slow, it seems, tonight. 17 minutes to go, though, is a long time, but you've got to be thinking that there's a lot of real estate to be catching up.
So, towards the bottom of the circuit they go again. That is real drama, and Scott Bugner, just when he was seeming to find a bit of form, actually, after a slightly off colour last couple of rounds. Scott hasn't had a top 5 in the last 4 races, and he was on the fringes of the top 5 in this one until that contact at the first corner. Meanwhile, Nicky Taylor closing right in here on Jack Smith, had a better run through the Schumacher S's. He's in the tow, he looks to the inside line. Is he late enough on the brakes to get the lead? They're going to go side by side into the left-hander. Nicky Taylor on our right as we look at it, Jack Smith on the left. But the circuit now goes back towards Jack Smith through the Warsteiner curve, and on the run down the hill, he will retain the race lead. But that was the first real attempt, I feel, there from Nicky to try and get that lead away.
Lovely racing respect, though, wasn't it, between the drivers? As we go for another move here, Nicky Taylor up the inside into the chicane. I said this exactly a lap ago that you got to be brave to be doing this, and I didn't expect it, but there we go. Nicky Taylor makes the move stick. So assertive on the brakes there, and Jack Smith just had to accept it. But will he accept going down to 3rd place? He might not have a choice. Andy Dorman's right on his tail.
So through they come then to the completion of the 2nd lap, and already a very, very entertaining race up to this point. Taylor leading then, Jack Smith already fading, and there's this Dorman coming up the inside of him. He's certainly peaking to the inside line, but ducks back onto the racing line as they hit the brakes. You can see them skating around Dorman's car, really wriggling in the braking zone, and he stays in 3rd place. Axelson 4th, Martin 5th, Felvers 6th, Tempera 7th, then Elliot Daltonaire, Scott Bugner, Ethan Hill completing the top 10. So Bugner not yet recovering from that slide. He was just coming into shot there. His first target will be the Honda of Elliot Daltonaire's, but he's not exactly right on his boot lid, so Scott Bugner doesn't look that likely, actually, to gain many more positions.
No, he does. It's not the end of the world, though, to be fair for Scott Bugner, isn't it? He does have that reverse grid opportunity. That'll put him a row ahead of Kyle Felvers, potentially even 2, actually. I can't imagine. I'm not very good at imagining reverse grids, to be honest. But it's a decent start for Scott Bugner in terms of... It could be a decent start, actually, for race 2. I'm still trying to figure out whether it be 1 or 2 rows ahead, to be honest.
Of Felvis, he would be 2 rows ahead.
2 rows, yes.
Well, you're now asking me to do maths, and that's always I think they would be just about 2 rows ahead. But Scott's not really in a position where he can think like that. At the start of the season, he was doing well. Remember, Scott won the first 2 reverse grid races of the season at Portimao and Paul Ricard, but hasn't been in the top 5 since. So I think he really does need to start just scoring points where he can. He clearly can't just rely on bagging those points in the reverse grid races anymore. Andy Tolman very sideways there as he turned into the Vorsteiner curve, and that looking a little bit tail happy already, and that means Eric Axelsen now closes right in on him. Now this is a circuit, Jack, where in a front wheel drive car especially, understeer can catch you out. So I wonder whether maybe Dorman's wound that brake bias back already because he's starting to feel those front tyres giving up.
Yeah, I mean, normally you invite me into a commentary box, don't you, Andy? Because I'm supposedly the expert driver, but I'll be honest, front-wheel drive, I suffer from understeer everywhere. I just put my foot down and off I go sort of thing. It's quite embarrassing, to be honest. So, yeah, the Nürburgring is a difficult circuit, and you're right. I think the front tyres do get chewed up quite a lot. There's very sort of medium and sort of low speed, medium and high speed corners. But obviously, if you get on the power a little bit early out to the first corner and the chicane, then you're going to scrub those tyres as well. So they're going to have to be really, really careful in how to maintain over the course of this race. But by the looks of it, Nicky Taylor seems to be going from strength to strength.
Nicky Taylor 1 second to the good, but is he pushing those tyres a bit too hard, or is this just the sort of pace that he's got? He was going quickly in practice earlier on, and if you believe what he tells you, he wasn't quite sure where the pace was coming from. But Nicky, we know, is quick. We know he's good in front-wheel drive cars, and really is overdue another good result. He has race win this season, that coming in race 1 at Paul Ricard. In race 2 at Paul Ricard, though, he got himself involved in a couple of skirmishes and was disqualified, so he hasn't really put together a fully consistent week until, you can argue, Norrisring a week ago, where he didn't get a podium, but Nicky did finish 4th in both races, banked some good points, and that means he arrives here at the Nürburgring in 6th position. Now, Jack, with some of those other championship frontrunners struggling, this is good news for Nicky Taylor. He is not out of this championship fight yet. You
need to take advantage when other drivers are not having such a good time, and you need to be able to take that momentum forward as well. So that's going to be crucial. I mean, it feels like the championship is only between 2 drivers, but we are only halfway through at the moment, aren't we? There's plenty of points up for offer, and as you say, Carl Velvis slightly out of position. Scott Bugner's definitely out of position. There's opportunities all the way through the grid for other drivers to come and take part in the actual championship fight. And who was that flying off the outside of the circuit? It was Andy Carroll, wasn't it? It's, having a bit of a cross-country adventure and losing out of position to Joel Lask, who, of course, is recovering after making contact with his teammate Scott Bugner, who I think is trying to fend off an attack from, Elliot Dalton-Ayres, top scorer from last week.
Yeah, Bugner's not exactly going forwards, is he? He's dropped 2.8 seconds behind Paolo Tempera now, so there is Bugner. There, the blue and black Honda behind him is Elliot Dalton-Ayres. Ethan Hill and Joel Lask also part of that fight. Andy Carroll then in 12th position, we just saw having the rallycross moment. He, remember, was the reverse grid winner a week ago at Norrisring.
He was.
Now your fortunes can change in a week here at the VRRC, but don't bet against him being near the pointy end in that reverse grid race later on tonight. That is Joel Lask, and that is not the racing line. He's not going to try and overtake Ethan Hill on the outside into turn 1. I don't think he was. I think he just missed his braking point there, slots back in behind the Honda. But 1 or 2 of them already, I think, struggling a little bit with the balance of the cars. I'm seeing lots of cars getting sideways under braking, and that is perhaps a sign, as I said, that they're tweaking that brake bias already. Jack, we're not even halfway through the race, so if they are having to adjust things like that, it doesn't bode well.
No, well, they should have probably been tweaking it through the Norrisring, to be honest, because as we got further into the races there, it was just like cannonballs into the first corner. It was awful. So fingers crossed we don't see any kind of shenanigans like that again. But you're right, the drivers hopefully will have learned from that, and they'll just brake that touch earlier. But it is really difficult. It's so tempting to brake really as late as you can when you've got a driver right on your back bumper and you're worried about them flying up the inside. But it's just having that composure and that calm sense of mind to say, you know what, this is my limit for braking. It's taken 2 meters back from my normal spot, and if they try and go 2 meters further on, then they're going to outbrake themselves. You need to be calm and relaxed and trust the fact that you know where your limit is. And if they can brake 4 meters later than you, then they can brake 4 meters later than you. You have to accept that and get them back later on.
And quite frankly, they deserve to take the place off you.
Yeah,
was
absolutely.
my attitude. There's no point breaking any later than you know you can break, because then you're going to hand them the place anyway when you slide off the track. So, yeah, sensible driving, a sensible head will prevail in a situation like that. Right now, it's Nicky Taylor who's prevailing in this race. 1.2 seconds nearly clear of Jack Smith in second, who's nearly 1 second ahead of Andy Dorman. So, all fairly static inside the top 4. The first real battle is the one for 5th. There it goes, with Josh Martin and Kyle Felvers nose to tail. Paolo Tempera is with them too, and that is significant. Remember, Martin is 4th in the championship, Felvers the championship leader, 16 points between them. It's important here for Josh to stay ahead.
Yep, and he's already going defensive, isn't he, into T1. Are we about to see it getting unravelled with a late break? Because, of course, when you're on the inside of the circuit, you need to break even earlier than if you were taking the optimum racing line. And it looks like Carl Felvers is trying to get that cutback, but around the Nürburgring GP, the track keeps going away to the away from the attacker and towards the defender. And it seems that Carl Felvers has actually managed to make me eat my words before I've even finished them. Great driving from the two of them. Really good racing respect. I think Josh Martin's under a little bit of pressure here, but he's just about managed to fend off the attack from Carl Felvers.
Yeah, excellent battle this, isn't it? Josh Martin, it won't be lost on him how important it is to try and keep Kyle at bay. He's already outscoring Scott Bugner, and he's only just behind Eric Axelsen. So of those top 4 in the championship right now, Axelsen the highest placed of them, and Josh Martin 1 place behind. But you can see the real estate between the two Lincoln Co's there. Down into the braking zone, Felvers sideways. They really are pinching the cars into the corners, which is what you need to do here, these long, constant radius corners. Even though many of them have positive canvas, such as the hairpin down there at the Dunlop hairpin, that is, you still have to sort of really get that front end into the apex, rotate the car as much as you can on entry. Carl Felvers taking that to the extreme. They just temporarily dropped Paolo Tempera. Bugner, you can see in the background, still in 8th ahead of Dalton Ayres and Ethan Hill. But this is one of the closest and most significant battles on the track, so we don't want to leave this. And it looks here like Carl Felvers has another run. Yeah,
he's trying to climb all over the grass to the left-hand side of the circuit. That'll unfortunately slow him down just a touch. Might take the opportunity away, but it doesn't look like Carl Felvers is up for giving it up without a fight at least. He did have an elongated look at the inside of Josh Martin's car, but it wasn't to be this time round. And I think next time they get around to that part of the circuit, 1, Kyle will know he's a little bit quicker going onto that good overtaking opportunity, and 2, he won't go onto the grass to try and make it happen. With 7 minutes to go, it's all an education here. When you're following a driver in front, you just got to know where you think you can make the best and safest overtaking opportunity, and it may well be into turn 1. Carl Felvers, last time round, tried it around the outside of Josh Martin, late on the brakes, and then through the next couple of corners of the complex. Looks like Andy, he's going to try and give that a go yet again.
Indeed so. Joel Lask, by the way, has pulled into the pit lane. He is out of the race. So Joel Lask out of the race after that contact earlier on. The car presumably a bit too badly damaged as Felvers has another little peek to the inside there into turn 3. In fact, it's more than a peek. He gets to the apex first, but then they turn right through turn 4, and so Josh Martin fends him off. But really, the writing's on the wall here, isn't it? Felvers is clearly the quicker of the two. Josh Martin really having to drive out his wing mirrors more than his windscreen. Is doing it successfully so far. Felvers all over him, and really just needs to try and force a bigger mistake out of Martin. But even when Martin makes a mistake, he seems able to cover it, doesn't he?
He does indeed, and I think what Josh Martin will be hoping is that Paolo Tempera actually puts a little bit more effort into trying to lunge up the inside of Carl Felvers, because it seems that Kyle, even though he's not making the overtake stick, and that means he's dropping off the back of Josh Martin for about half a lap, Paolo Tempera doesn't seem that interested in trying to go for the move and take advantage of that. I think Paolo probably knows that he hasn't got the overall pace of Kyle or Josh, but you need to throw yourself about a little bit more. With 5.5 minutes to go, there's an opportunity. If you can get ahead of the quicker car, that doesn't mean the quicker car is guaranteed to get back past you immediately, does it? I mean, just look at what's going on ahead of him.
Indeed so. Tempera just sort of keeping a watching brief here. I think he can sense that there is the possibility that the two cars ahead of him could get a bit too close to each other in the near future, because Kyle Felvers isn't known for being backwards in coming forward. Josh Martin has built up a bit of a reputation for being difficult to overtake, so it does have a sense of unstoppable force and immovable object, this, and it could be that Tempera sort of picks up the pieces if that turns out to be the case. They come back through the Coca-Cola curve with exactly 5 minutes left on the clock. We are 3/4 of the way through this race. Nicky Taylor is actually being caught now by Jack Smith. The gap is down to a second, almost exactly the same distance back to Dorman in third, but I would say that Smart 5 car, Jack, is starting to get a bit closer to the race leader.
Yeah, Nicky Taylor will be seeing it just growing slightly in the rear-view mirrors, which won't be phasing him too much for the time being, but he'll want to minimise that growth if potentially possible. Andy Dorman actually was the fastest driver through Sector 1 in the last lap, so Dorman's, whatever he's doing, it's working a treat as well, and actually he's closer to Jack Smith than Smith is to Taylor, so we could be seeing a change in the top 3, but it could well be for second instead of third, as Nicky Taylor's just pulled out a 2/10 gap, 3/10 gap now to Jack Smith over the course of just one sector. So, yeah, Nicky Taylor all of a sudden turning it back on, and Andy Dorman going well as well.
Kenny Press isn't, I'm afraid. Kenny Press is going the wrong way. That's what Kenny Press is doing. He's had a rotation at the first corner, gets the Alfa Romeo Giulietta back on the straight and narrow. Just to correct myself, by the way, Joel Lask did not retire from the race. He pitted and rejoined, according to the timing screen, in 14th place. So perhaps fixing damage and maybe sticking a new set of tyres on to try and go for the fastest lap. We'll figure out whether he's been successful in that in a couple of minutes' time. But Joel Lask is still running, and you can see him there coming down towards the hairpin in 14th place. Meanwhile, back to the Martin Felvus, I was going to say Tempera battle, but Paolo really is slipping off the back of those two now, isn't he?
He definitely doesn't have the pace. I think that is clear, isn't it? And maybe he's scrubbing his tyres and trying to keep up with the drivers ahead as well. Maybe that's sort of on his mind. But it looks like Carl Felvus has got a good run. Now, he hasn't gone to the left-hand side to try and open up the fast right-hander and up into the chicane. That means he hasn't gone on the grass, but he is going to try and take advantage around the outside, Andy. This is a bit of look. Close your eyes and sort of squint through your fingers, see if this one works. And Carl Felvus has managed to make it work. What a move!
That was rather impressive, and that was the overtake of a champion. We know that he's had success with the VRRC in the past, and he's looking to try and find some more in the touring cars. This has been a really classy drive, this, but Josh Martin might try and come back at him here. He's got the slipstream, and he's only a car length or so back into the braking zone at turn 1. Will Felvus choose to defend the inside? He doesn't. There's a very inviting gap there, and Josh Martin's always going to take it, but he doesn't look likely to stop the car. He runs wide, Carl Felvus goes back up the inside, and that you could rather see coming, couldn't you? 10 out of 10 for commitment there for Josh Martin. Just didn't really have the brakes underneath him at this stage of the race.
It's amazing, isn't it, how drivers quite often, we say something, Andy, and then drivers go and prove us immediately wrong. But Carl Felvus actually did exactly what I said before, which is quite astonishing. He knew where his braking zone was. He knew exactly where his limit was, and he just trusted the fact that if Josh Martin tried to go later than him on the brakes, that he would run out wide and he'd just sneak back up the inside. It's exactly what he did. Nice, cool, calm and collected, and not only a brilliant move to get the place in the first time round, he also retained it fantastically well as well.
Although he's not pulling away here as much as I expected through the first half of the lap, so Josh Martin might be able to get into an overtaking position again in the final part of this lap. This should be the penultimate lap, by the way. Minute and a half left to go, and they're making their way back now towards the end of this lap, this 9th lap of the race, I believe that they're on, so one more lap to go. Nicky Taylor responding now to the pressure from Jack Smith. That gap's back up to 1.4, so again, you're not missing anything there. This is still the closest and most significant battle on the track between Carl Felvus and Josh Martin, who really has found a new lease of life now. He's took right back on the boot lid of the Audi and might well choose to repeat that move into the chicane that Felvus made on him a lap ago.
Oh, he's going at the inside of the fast right, though, and I'm not entirely sure. That looked a little bit early as they start rubbing. I know rubbing is racing in touring cars, but this could get a little bit tasty, Andy, as they go into the chicane. How are they going to appear? Well, Carl Felvus has gone very deep, and I think that may well compromise his run into the final corner. This could all go Paolo Tempera's way if he's nice and calm about it, and these guys aren't too careful about it. But it looks like Kyle has managed to get away with that one. But you're right, Josh seems to have found a new lease of life, and he's keen to put Kyle through his paces.
And I think he's going to have another go into the hairpin, and I already know what's going to happen if he tries it. In fact, this time Felvus defends the inside. Martin tries the outside. That is never going to work in a month of Sundays, surely. Wheel to wheel through the apex. It might just work,
Oh, my days. Oh, my days.
For turn number 2, and Josh Martin has gone back ahead of Kyle Felvus. Move of the season from Josh Martin, and he's back into 5th.
Oh, I'll tell you what, Sundays all round, boys. It's a fantastic month to be alive. What a move, not only by Kyle to get that 5th place, but then Josh to take it back as well just a couple of laps later. Fantastic racing respect by the both of them. Paolo Tempera's got a brilliant seat in just to watch this one, and to be fair, I'm not surprised that he isn't trying to overtake them, because it's great entertainment as Carl Felvers gets a little bit of a switch around as well. And finally, here comes Paolo Tempera on the final lap of the race. He's starting to try and flex his muscles and try and take advantage.
And when you factor in the championship significance in this as well, the pressure on Josh Martin to pull that off, he's locked up again into the heaven at the bottom end of the track. He's hanging on by his fingernails here, but only has to do so for another half a lap. The trouble is that some of the best overtaking opportunities are coming up in the final half. He really needs Paolo Tempera to come to his rescue here and put some pressure on Kyle Felvers, but I'm not sure he's able to do it. Another few laps, by the way, and Scott Bugner would have been a part of this. Look, he's only 1.6 seconds behind as they turn now through the left and right sequence of Michelin and Vorsteiner curve, and then make the run down the dip, past the Nordschleife, and towards the end of this, the final lap of racing. The top 4 positions are all pretty much set. Nicky Taylor, Jack Smith, Andy Dorman, Eric Axelson, all well separated. It's all about this fight for 5th in the race between the drivers 4th and 1st, respectively, in the championship. Defensive line taken by Josh Martin into the chicane. Felvers tries the outside line. That might just work. He's got the inside for the right-hander. Squeaky clean driving between the pair of them. They go door to door up the hill. But no, Martin has held on. Tempera pulls up alongside as well. The win goes to Nicky Taylor. Jack Smith 2nd. Dorman 3rd. Axelson 4th. The real question, though, is who comes home in 5th? Will it be Martin, Felvers, or Tempera? It is Josh Martin, Felvers 6th, Tempera 7th. What battle that was, and that is how you do it, Jack. That was clean. There was minimal, if no, contact, and they all were there at the end. What a battle.
I'll tell you what, it's a bit of a shame we're not going to chat to them, isn't it? Because that was all for the non-podium positions, the best of the rest, basically. Apart from Eric Axelson, of course. But yeah, brilliant to watch. Fantastic. Well done to those 2 drivers. They put on one hell of a show, and I can already start a shortlist for who my driver of the day is, Andy, I would say, on that one, because both of them deserve massive credit.
100%. Fantastic racing that from both of them. And yeah, who knows, we might get a chance to talk to them after race number 2, but we will be talking to our top 3 finishers in just a few moments' time. Welcome back, everyone, to the VRRC and the Touring Car Championship. The second half of the season has started with a bang. Annoyingly, in a way, the drivers we're about to chat to on the podium all had pretty tame and uneventful races at the front. The real action was happening behind them, but we'll unpack that a little bit later on. For now, let's have a chat with our race winner, Nicky Taylor. Nicky, congratulations. You were just pipped to the pole position in that qualifying session earlier on today. And indeed, you didn't have the lead right from the word go, but it looked from the very first lap like you were on the attack. You must have been confident you had the pace to win that one.
Yeah, I was. I don't like to be cocky half the time, but to be fair to this, tonight I've been relatively quick for myself and got a bit annoyed with qualifying because I was on for a 6.8 and then completely screwed it and done the same thing in a race while trying to push too hard at the front. But yeah, just got past Jack quick on. Thought I could push with him initially, and I was like, I can see I'm quicker, so I went through and yeah, just tried to keep my head down and not look in my mirrors too much and just pushed away.
An important win that as well, because it's your second of the season, but your first one since Paul Ricard in the third race of the season. You're not out of championship contention, are you? You're only, 25 points or so off the championship lead. Neither Kyle or Scott scored particularly high in that race. So how confident are you that you can get yourself fully back into that championship equation?
still as confident as what I was before the championship started. I still think I can win it because at the end of the day, Kyle is due a bad round. He had a mediocre round at Paul Ricard, but he's due a bad round. Scott's due quite a bad one. And at the end of the day, if I can, the last 3 races of the championship all favour my driving style and my kind of tracks. So all to play for. We've only had half of it so far, so bring on the next half.
Excellent. We love fighting talk here at the VRRC. Nikki, congratulations on the second win of the season. And who knows, we might be chatting to you again later on.
Thank you very much.
So Nikki Taylor then with an important race victory. It wasn't Nikki who started on pole, though. That was Jack Smith. And Jack Oliphant is about to have a chat with him.
Yeah, Jack, congratulations on the second place. I know that's probably not the position you wanted to finish after your brilliant qualifying, but it's, best of a bad situation in terms of where you could have finished, I suppose.
Yeah, learned a lot from staying behind Nicky, to be fair, because he's got that sector 1 nailed, so I picked up some pointers from it. So, I saw him go for the move. I was like, I'm not gonna fight that because I could see Andy's closing in the background, so going to avoid a 3-way battle for the lead and just sort of push on and see if I can make inroads. But yeah, Nicky had the pace in that race, so I'm pretty happy with second though. I'm just hoping we have a clean one in the second race.
That's what I was about to go on to. It was clean up and down the order from what we could tell. And those first couple of corners, were you a bit hesitant or were you sort of safe in the knowledge that everybody would, for once, listen to Rich Hayden and be nice and calm into T1?
Yeah, I trusted Rich's words in the driver briefing, so I went for it and just sort of left the door open, and luckily no one took it. So, yeah, quite happy with turn 1. Just hoping it's the same this race.
I was going to say, race 2, reverse grid. Obviously, a lot of pace and a lot of things learnt under your bonnet, but it's about race management now, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. See if I can weave my way through the field and see what happens. Really. Yeah, try and avoid any incidents. Hopefully, my spree of bad luck has sort of ended now, so we'll see what happens.
I was going to say, it's quite a nice open circuit, isn't it? And for overtakes, there is plenty of opportunities. Is it something you're just going to be, you're not forcing anything, but you're just going to try and take advantage, or are you going to try and muscle your way through?
Yeah, there's lots of fast sections into slow corners, so there's a little bit of strategy which you can sort of work out when you're racing. So I'll figure it out as I go.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations on the second place, Jack, and we'll hopefully speak to you after this.
Cheers, Jack.
Good stuff. Jack Smith, second place then from pole position. It was a solid third place for Andy Dorman, and Andy joins us as well in the commentary box now. Andy, your second appearance on the podium. It really seems that when you're on form in this VW Golf, you are as competitive as anyone.
Yeah, it seems to be that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, a bit hit and miss, perhaps, this season. What is it, do you think, about the Nürburgring that has allowed you to get back to your best?
Me and the Golf seem to get on better with the faster speed corners, I think. The tight, twisty ones of last week it was a bit of a mare for me, to be fair.
That's interesting then, because we were actually monitoring your sector times during that race, and it was sector 1 where you really seemed to be gaining the time through the tight twisty stuff. But it's so competitive out there. I suppose you're working in fractions of a second here, there, and everywhere, aren't you? It's not an easy grid to get on the podium.
Yeah, it's really difficult to get quite far up the field with this. I have found the Golf's really good on the brakes, though. I think that helps into turn 1.
And might help with some overtakes in race 2, I suppose, which is coming up very shortly. So we'll let you go and finish your preparations for that. But congratulations on that podium, Andy.
Yep, thanks a lot.
So Andy Dorman then completes our podium finishers after what was a very entertaining first race. And I suspect race 2 is going to be no different. We reversed the entire finishing order from that first race. So every driver who finished, and I think that was everybody, will be inverted to give us the grid for race 2. So once again, Jack, we've got some quick drivers coming from the back, and actually a couple of our championship contenders starting slap bang in the middle.
Yeah, and you've also got the likes of Joel Lask starting at the front. So if you're going to be picking out potential favourites for this race, if Joel Lask can get up to the top of the order by the second or third corner, you've got to think that he's going to be starting to pull away. And if the Norris ring is anything to go by, John Jones is potentially just going to be as stubborn as anybody in trying to fend off the attacks from everybody else on the circuit. So there's going to be some drama, there's going to be some fireworks, and I imagine there's going to be a very stressed Rich Hayden behind his seat as well in trying to make sure that everybody behaves themselves.
Well, indeed so. But as we've been saying, there's plenty of room for them all. You've just got to give each other that room going into the first corner. But everyone's going to have a slightly different idea on where they should be braking. And in theory, those at the back of the grid are capable of braking the latest. So they're going to really have to use their head here on the run to that first corner. The yellow and black Audi on pole position then, that is Sam Zero. Alongside him, the white, red and black Alfa Romeo is Kenny Press, with John Jones and Joel Lask, the man that Jack has just, I think, unofficially tipped for the race win, starting fourth on the grid. The lights go out, away they go, and it looks like a decent start made by Lask, so too actually by Paul Laramie in the red and green Cupra alongside him, but Sam Zero appears to be holding the lead as they rush downhill into turn number one, and John Jones, I think, slipping into second position. That's Laramie out on the grass. He's not going to come back onto the track. Yes, he does, but thankfully ahead of everybody and not in the middle of everybody. So I think we might have got away with that. Laramie's dropping down the order, but he is the only one, really. So Kenny Press then retaining the lead. No, he's not. That is, Kenny Press on the inside of Sam Zero, and here comes Lask as well, up the inside of the pair of them, down into turn number 3. They both run out wide, and so far, Jack, your prophecy is coming true.
I'll tell you what, if everybody listened to me, the world would be a better place, wouldn't it? It's it would be simpler anyway. Joel Lask getting that race lead, and who else are we looking out for? Scott Bugner up to 6th position. Of course, he didn't have a fantastic race 1, scored some decent points. He rescued a half-decent finish, but it looks like race 2 is going to be where he's going to try and rescue the evening as a whole. Elliot Dalton-Ayre is down to 6th position as well. But all in all, and apart from John Jones, who's all the way down in 18th after starting on the front row of the grid, everybody seems fairly happy with that race start, although there's a couple of drivers firing themselves at the inside into the hairpin there. Jack Smith hasn't been able to make too many moves. He's at 13th, just getting past Eric Axelson, who hasn't put in much of a shift yet either. But Carl Felvis up to 8th place already in the top 10.
Yeah, it was Carroll who was trying to get up the inside of someone. I suspect Ethan Hill into the hair, but it didn't work, and actually Felvis got past him. So Carl Felvis again, opportunistic on the opening lap. There goes Scott Bugner, look, peeking to the inside of Alok Iyengar for 4th position. It's important here for Bugner to try and make some ground as well, but Iyengar is up the inside of him, so he almost made the move stick, but Alok comes straight back at him. Elliot Dalton-Ayre takes advantage, picks the pocket of Scott Bugner, and Scott down into 6th position. The leaders nose to tail as well as they make their way towards the end of the lap, but look at that scrum of cars fighting for 4th. If they all get through the chicane in one piece, Jack, I'll be amazed.
I was going to say, I'm actually... Oh, there we go. And your prophecy is coming true as well today, Andy. It seems we've all got the vision of foresight in our eyes, haven't we? Joel Lask and Kenny Press. I'm very impressed with Kenny Press, by the way. That's what I was about to say before carnage broke loose on the chicane. Not been jogged by Joel Lask. I assumed he would drive off into the distance, but that's not been the case. Anyways, they come across the line. Let's just give you the new order because there was quite a lot of carnage there, and we'll try and sort it out and figure out who went where after this. But Joel Lask on top, Kenny Press in 2nd, Ethan Hill in 3rd, Carl Felvis is now in 4th, Josh Martin is now in 5th, Alok Iyengar is dropping down the order as I read it. No, in fact, they're all still trying to figure themselves out because, Andy, through T1, they're still 3 or 4 wide.
Yeah, that was Josh Martin getting in on the act. Andy Carroll losing out. Ethan Hill there almost pulling out of the way, it seemed, for Carl Felvis. Has Felvis gone through? Yes, that was a strange one. Ethan Hill really did just pull to the left-hand side of the road into turn 3 and seemingly allow Felvis through. So Carl Felvis, the championship leader, into a podium place as well, but Bugner's making ground up too. Josh Martin was making ground, but drops down into 8th position. Where's Axelson? Only 12th, so Axelson really not making much ground, and I wonder whether he got involved in that incident at the chicane. One car, it was either Iyengar or Tempera, it was a yellow Honda, arrived into camera shot of the chicane in mid-air, which such was the size of the wallop they'd had up the back, but somehow they're all still there, I think, as they come through the hairpin for the 3rd time.
Yeah, it's. I mean, there's always going to be a little bit carnage in race number 2. The reverse grids sort of encourage it in a way, and unofficially encourage it. Obviously, we try and do our best to calm everybody down in the stewards' room. Well, not me and Andy. We actually positively enjoy this kind of carnage, but it gives us something to shout about. But we do try and keep everybody as calm. But sometimes reverse grids, racing happens. People try and get carried away. And speaking of getting carried away, Scott Bugner looking at the inside through a corner where you think, Andy, it's just better off to get a good exit, not try and compromise your entry.
You'd think, wouldn't you? But it's also a very wide turn-in, so it leaves that nice inviting gap up the inside for people to try and attack. Nicky Taylor was attacking there. I think he was actually trying to get past Josh Martin. They're side by side towards the chicane, and Taylor has swept around the outside. So our race 1 winner, Nicky Taylor, is not in the lead of the race.
He's not.
That is a timing glitch, I suspect. But where exactly he is, I'm not so sure now.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure either, but as they come across the line, I'm sure it'll figure itself out. There we go. He's tumbling, and there we go. It's settled in 7th place, Nicky Taylor, just ahead of Josh Martin. Kenny Press and Joel Lask, I tipped them for a potential race victory here, Joel Lask, didn't I? But he wasn't able to pull away from Kenny Press, and now look at the rest of the field. They're all starting to gang up on these top 2 drivers, aren't they? And it's led by a charging Kyle Felvers.
Indeed. Again, neither of these LB Motorsport Hyundais have seemed that quick tonight, have they? And Lask may be in the lead, but he can't escape. Bugner, though, is, again, having to defend look from Ethan Hill. Meanwhile, Kyle Felvers has gotten into 2nd position. What's going on for 4th? Well, they both run out a bit wide, especially Scott Bugner, and I suspect that Hill will reclaim that 4th position. But now that Kyle Felvers is into 2nd position, he perhaps does become the new favourite for the race victory, because we know he's got pace. He has charged his way through on this grid from, where did he start? He would have started about 13th or 14th, wouldn't he? And he is already into 2nd place and hounding Joel Lask as they drop down into the hairpin. Not close enough yet to have a go, so Lask retains the advantage. Felvers 2nd, Press 3rd, and that was Alok Iyengar taking a very agricultural line into the hairpin.
I was going to say, I'm glad you spotted that, because I didn't actually. I was almost trying to think of a reason why Kyle Felvers shouldn't win Driver of the Day, considering he's only driving with one hand, basically, isn't he, I think? Yeah. It's a very, very impressive feat from him. Maybe he should turn the force feedback down more often, as we see Kenny Press and Ethan Hill going side by side as well. Looks Kyle Felvers up to the inside. I said that was a corner that you really wanted to get a good exit on. Not a brilliant entry, and Kyle Felvers, I think, was just trying to force Joel Lask offline there. I don't think he really needed to, because he was going to get the slipstream. If he focused on his line, he was clearly one of the quickest here out on here on the circuit, and he's going, we see a driver going stage exit right, Andy, and doesn't seem to be able to turn back on.
Ethan Hill, that was, I think. I'm not quite sure what happened there. Oh, and that was Iyengar as well, I think, going straight on. So those 2 Hondas, both in strife, I'm afraid, as they go through the chicane. Joel Lask retaining the race lead, but look at Scott Bugner. He has come through all of that carnage, chaos and confusion into 3rd position. Nicky Taylor is 4th, and Kenny Press down into 5th position. So Scott Bugner and Nicky Taylor both charging to the front, and this is why I think Kyle Felvers is so eager to find a way past Lask, why he's looking into every braking zone, because he knows that Nicky Taylor, the race 1 winner, is a-coming. He's in 4th already. Josh Martin going up the inside of Kenny Press will take 5th through turn 1, but there are some quick drivers on a march to the front.
There are indeed, and that is, you're exactly right. Kyle Felvers is keen bean right now in that 2nd place, isn't he? And Joel Lask, though, is being as stubborn as he ever is, and as stubborn as he's allowed to be fair, and leading this race. But with 13 minutes to go, it doesn't seem to, the odds aren't in his favour, put it that way. It seems that Ethan Hill has DNF'd after his excursion over to the right-hand side of the circuit going into the chicane. It did look like it was a wheel death, potentially, as well. So I think that's what plagued him last week as well. So, yeah, so many hardware errors for Ethan Hill. Unfortunately, Ethan, the commentary box is full now, unless somebody wants to kick me out, and then you can do it with Andy McEwan this week.
We wouldn't dream of taking that team, Jack. Jack Smith, meanwhile, on the inside of Kenny Press, brings Eric Axelson with him as well. So Kenny Press continuing to slip down the order. Ethan tells us his wheel got disconnected. And I believe he might have had a run-in with Scott Bugner before that as well. So Ethan Hill has not had the best of races. Nicky Taylor looking up the inside of Scott Bugner for 3rd position. That was a really committed move. He's going to run Bugner out over the curb. And Scott, I'm sure, will retaliate into the next right-hander at Vorsteiner curve. Yes, he does. And they continue to run door to door. This is good news, actually, for Kyle Felvers, because it means that, as of now, he's not got any pressure from behind. But he just can't quite find a way past Joel Lask.
No, but at least he can take it. Well, I was going to say take his time, but to be honest, he doesn't seem keen on taking his time, doesn't he? Is he going to try and repeat the move that he did on Josh Martin in race number 1? He is, and it's not going to work that time, and that's what we suspected would happen in race number 1. Not Scott Bugner, Joel Lask almost got turned around. The front-wheel drive came to his aid. He put his foot down. He got his facing in the right direction, but Nicky Taylor and Kyle Felvers have dropped behind Scott Bugner and Joel Lask now as the teammates lead the way, followed by another set of teammates in 3rd and 4th.
Indeed, with Josh Martin right with them as well. I don't know whether my eyes deceived me there, but it looked as if Jack Smith nearly got tipped upside down by Eric Axelson through the chicane. So those two have come to blows and are side by side again. Martin up the inside of Felvers. They're both up the inside of everybody. That's surely going to be contact. Yes, it is. Sideways goes Joel Lask, who has been so out of luck all night long. Bugner with the lead. Alok Iyengar spinning around as well. It's Bugner who leads. Taylor and Martin side by side for second. Felvers fourth. Tempera fifth. Lask with his dander up dives back up the inside of him into the left-hander and gets the place away. All hell breaking loose as we reach the midway point of race 2.
Well, I'll be honest, maybe commentators curse, I'll put that down too, because Joel Lask has not had a fantastic lap or two there, has he? And after being, well, somewhat with a target on his back, I feel. It's going to be a difficult one for him to recover, but his teammate Scott Bugner leads the way, and Carl Felvers will be very unhappy about that because, of course, he was going for a race lead once upon a time, and now his championship rival has taken that race lead after the collisions and the contact that was caused between him and Joel Lask. So all in all, it's not worked out for Kyle whatsoever, and Josh Martin and Nicky Taylor are ahead of him as well in second and third place. So realistically, I think, Andy, we're on for a bit of a fireworks sort of ending.
Well, absolutely, because we've got all of the heavy hitters at the front now. We've got Bugner leading, like you said. We have to now count Nicky Taylor as a title contender, I think. Certainly, if he can hang on to another podium in this second race. Then it's Josh Martin ahead of Kyle Felvers significantly. Eric Axelson really the one who's struggling a bit here. He is ahead of Jack Smith after their little contretemps at the chicane a lap ago. And those two continuing to run nose to tail, only in 7th and 8th positions. Andy Dorman just went through. He's languishing down in 10th. So quite a few drivers not exactly maximising their opportunities from the Nürburgring this week. Hopping over the curbs they go then. 1.1 seconds is the advantage right now between Bugner and Taylor. Well, interesting to see whether that comes down or whether Nicky is going to come under threat from Josh Martin.
Well, I would quite like to see another fight that involved Josh Martin, because it was so clean, respectful and entertaining in race number 1. But of course, there are plenty of other drivers that can facilitate that kind of action as well. It seems they've all just eked away from each other, haven't they, for the time being, apart from Carl Felvers and Joel Lask, who I thought was looking at the inside. And again, Paolo Tempera is right in the thick of it, isn't he, Andy? It doesn't seem to be sort of stealing any headlines, but he's there, he's involved, and I'm sure he's happy about it.
It's how his whole season's been, really. Had that one standout podium in the reverse grid race at Paul Ricard, but he's been a regular sort of top 5-6 runner when he doesn't get caught up in incidents. But I mean, most drivers have been getting caught up in incidents at one point or another. Consistency is ultimately what's going to win this championship. I think we've all said that really right from the word go. It's such a big field, such a competitive field, and in touring cars, we've got cars that naturally produce a little bit of contact, shall we say. So, you know, you're not going to finish every race cleanly. You're going to have some nights that don't go your way. And it's the drivers who at the end of the season have the fewest off nights, the fewest bits of bad luck, the fewest incidents, who are likely to come out on top in the points. Scott Bugner has had his fair share of ups and downs in this season, won 2 of the first 4 races, but at the moment he's looking for his first podium in 6 races, if he can get there by the end of this one. But Nicky Taylor, I would say here, Jack, is starting to close him down.
Yeah, it's not surprising, is it, given Nicky's race pace in race number 1 earlier on. It's going to be a bit of a headache for Scott. I think he just needs to make sure that he's aiming for a podium, not necessarily disappointed if he doesn't get the race win. Obviously, he needs to aim for the race win if he can possibly get it. But if he doesn't, if he ends up slipping down to 2nd place, the race isn't over. The objective shouldn't stop there, sort of thing. A 3rd place even is still a decent amount of points, and it's still ahead of Carl Felvers, importantly enough, as well. But obviously, I'm hoping that he pulls out all the stops to try and stay in that first. Maybe Nicky Taylor will catch up. Maybe he'll make some moves, and it won't quite come off for him for half a lap or so. And that bunches Josh Martin up. That bunches Carl Felvers and Joel Lask, and everybody starts to get a sniff at a potential race victory. And then all of a sudden, we see them falling over each other somewhat, like we saw only a couple of laps ago.
Indeed so. Back down towards the first corner they head. The gap down to 7/10. So Nicky Taylor clearly the fastest driver on the track right now, but only has about a 1/3 of the race left to try and make that move. For the time being, dare I say it, they are calming down ever so slightly, but as the gap start to ebb and flow between different drivers, the battles will, I'm sure, pick up again in the final 5 minutes or so. The leader then, Taylor 2nd, Martin 3rd, Felvers 4th, Lask 5th, Tempera 6th, Axelson still only 7th. But I do wonder whether his Lincoln Co has sustained a little bit of damage in that contact with Jack Smith. Although, to be fair, Eric hasn't exactly been setting the timing screens alight this week. He got that sort of fairly uneventful run to 4th place in race 1, but never did seem likely to challenge for a podium. And here, just doesn't quite seem to be able to claw his way through the field. It speaks for the competitive nature of this grid that someone of Axelson's undoubted ability isn't able to just tear up through the field.
It's a proper Colin Turkington style showing, isn't it? I would say from Eric Axelson. He's there or thereabouts. He doesn't need to be the fastest. He don't race at Alton Park every single week today, and it's showing that Eric, although he isn't as fast as some of the other drivers when we get to other tracks, he is still scoring decent points. I'm not saying he's going to win the championship, but he's always sort of in the thick of it. And I think we know from Eric's previous championship hauls and MX-5s and Civics and everything like that, and that is how he drives the car. It's how he wins championships as well. He doesn't necessarily need to be the fastest. He just needs to be there, and Eric is doing a brilliant job of it.
He's indeed. He's Mr. Consistency, as you said. Eric Axelson, he's got Jack Smith right behind him. Meanwhile, Scott Bugner's got Nicky Taylor right behind him, because that gap that was about 7/10 at the start of the lap has now come down to virtually a car length, really, as they come through the chicane. So that lead battle about to erupt, and I suspect that Nicky's going to have a go here into that first corner. Needs to get a good exit from the final turn, which he has. Look, he's gaining on Bugner already. The gap coming down to a 1/10.5, down to a 10th. It's a new fastest lap for Nicky Taylor, and he's right up in the wheel tracks of Scott Bugner. Scott Bugner, who came into the night second in the championship, really could do with this race win, but Nicky Taylor needs it arguably even more to try and gain points in the championship on all of them. He can't get the lead away just yet, but as Bugner starts to defend, Nicky Taylor really starts to gain more of an advantage, because Bugner is now slowing himself down in order to protect the inside line.
I think Nicky Taylor, even in the interview, said that, you know, there's a long way to go in this championship. We're only just over halfway, but look how desperate everybody is to score those points. The championship is well and truly on the mind of these drivers, and every single point counts. And that's starting to mean that people are a little bit more aggressive potentially than they would have been in the first half of the season. So I'm enjoying it. I'm here for it, to be honest. And as I said before, the Nürburgring GP circuit certainly promotes that. We've seen some awesome racing. These touring cars are suited perfectly to it, and hopefully we'll see a very entertaining but clean end to this race too and the evening. Nicky Taylor looking around the outside. Is he going to try and get that cut back, because he was never going to be able to carry the momentum? And I hear a gasp from Andy McEwan. What's happened?
Because Joel Lask has just driven into the side of Kyle Felvis and taken fourth place away, but Tempera's come through as well. Kyle is not going to be very happy with that, I don't think, from what I saw. It was at a distance, but it looked like a fairly ambitious lunge from Joel. But anyway, he's come through into fourth place. Meanwhile, his teammate defending the race lead for all he is worth. It's going to be touch and go, but I think we'll get 2 more laps at the end of this one. So that is not good news for Scott Bugner. It means he has to defend for even longer. There is Lask. Look, fourth now, ahead of Tempera, Felvis, Axelson and Smith, all in a long line. It is all starting to kick off. And as always, Jack, we don't know where to look.
We don't know, and it shows the strength of the competition as a front two actually tried to close the gap on each other, basically, there. Scott Bugner keeps the race lead, but Josh Martin's been well and truly invited to the party now, hasn't he? Paolo Tempera, he's going to get his elbows out a little bit more, unless, apart from, he's got the fact of Kyle Felvis just behind him. Now, it just goes to show, Andy, doesn't it, how good these races have been? Because for the first time this season, in terms of driver of the round, we're almost disagreeing with who to give it to. We're not disagreeing, but sort of trying to make the case for about 5 different drivers, aren't we? And that is to show how good the racing has been, as they almost go 3 wide into turn number 1. But Carl Felvis and Joel Lask just about stay behind Paolo Tempera for the time being.
Well, that means Tempera and Felvis have gone past Lask, I think, because, of course, Lask got past Felvis, didn't he, a half or nearly a lap ago. That was Axelson up the inside of Jack Smith as well. I mean, this has got disaster written all over it, hasn't it? There are some very feisty drivers in that group, and a couple of them who have had a few run-ins already. Jack Smith and Eric Axelson, as a matter of fact, are 2 of them who have already had at least 1 bit of contact, and Axelson does retain the position as they run down towards turn number 5. What should be the penultimate time of asking. It is still Scott Bugner who leads. It is still Nicky Taylor in second position, but Paolo Tempera has driven really well, hasn't he, to get through this group of cars, and I wonder if he might just be able to hang on at the front of it.
Yeah, well, we've shown how he's been there or thereabouts. He's able to follow. We know that. He's got good pace when he's following. Can he do it when he is the car being chased, though? That is the biggest question. That really separates the good drivers from the best. And really, we'll have to wait and see, because over the course of this half a lap, he hasn't exactly been put under too much pressure from Carl Felvers, but it's whether or not you can do that on the last lap of the race as well to secure yourself a 4th place and probably a season's best finish as well. Runs a little bit wide there, and when you've got a championship contender just behind you, a championship leader, I should probably say, actually, in Carl Felvers, he doesn't get much pressure, more pressure than that.
Yeah, it's a tricky situation, isn't it? Because you're racing against people who are fighting for a championship, but then you're still there to race yourself. So it's a really difficult balancing act for people like Paolo, but I think he's doing everything just right so far. Nicky Taylor, I noticed, was having another go at Scott Bugner into the chicane. Josh Martin temporarily dropping away from them, but as soon as they start battling, that green and white Lincoln Co gets a little bit closer. In fact, I think they're side by side again, are they? Yes, Nicky Taylor to the outside, but had his nose ahead as they crossed the line. He was half a second quicker than Bugner on that lap, but he's on the wrong side of the road. He's trying to squeeze over to the inside, but he's cleared him. Nicky Taylor has got the lead from Scott Bugner. That was just superior traction off the final corner. Bugner went right, Taylor stayed left, and that gave him the lead. Bugner back up the inside into turn number 2. That's always likely to end in contact. He backed out of it before that happens, and now I suspect Taylor might be able to break away.
Yeah, you'd be, if you were in the Nicky Taylor camp, you'd be certainly hoping so, wouldn't you? Because we are on the last lap now, and as soon as he can clear about 2 or 3 corners and get maybe a couple of tenths gap, which is exactly what he's done, you'd like to think that Nicky Taylor would be able to be consistent enough and cool enough under pressure to be able to pull away from Scott Bugner, who did lead the race really, really well. He was defending for about 4 or 5 laps there from Nicky, and he's definitely not an easy driver to defend from. So yeah, fair play to Scott Bugner. He just has to focus now on securing that podium, well, that 2nd place actually, and try not to let Josh Martin through.
So, and there they go through the hairpin. Paolo Tempera still defending his 4th place from Kyle Felvers, but yeah, the question now becomes whether or not Scott Bugner can hang on to 2nd. Again, this all has championship significance, because all 3 of these drivers at the front of the field are likely to be championship contenders right to the end of the season. Up the hill they climb, then Taylor leading, Bugner 2nd, Josh Martin 3rd, Tempera in the distance in the yellow Honda is 4th. The pink and white Audi of Carl Felvers in 5th, less than half a lap to go. And it does look like things are calming down at the front. That looked like Axelson up the inside of Joel Lask, though, for 6th position, so still plenty of battles to be settled here in the final few corners.
Yeah, I was getting a bit anxious there as we saw those 2 fleeting through our camera angle, but it looks like the Axelson and Lask have managed to sort themselves out, but Carl Felvers isn't keen on allowing Paolo Tempera to get away with this one. The top 3 go through our shot, and Carl Felvers goes straight on through our shot as well. No idea where he was heading or how he ended up there either, but on the last lap, it's all gone wrong for Carl Felvers, it seems. Nicky Taylor's going to round out the final corner, and he'll take another race victory for us tonight here at the Nürburgring. Scott Bugner takes 2nd place, Josh Martin in 3rd, but Paolo Tempera in 4th, and Carl Felvers recovers, I would say, into 5th.
Yeah, he didn't advantage, did he? But he certainly didn't lose a lot of time either. Just stayed sort of where he was really in 5th, so no harm, no foul there. Joel Lask 6th, Jack Smith 7th. So Jack Smith got ahead of Axelson on that final lap. We saw that Axelson was having a pop at Joel Lask, but actually it was Smith who benefited from that, with Axelson in 8th, 9th place Andy Dorman, Andy Carroll, the 2 Andys, rounding out the top 10, just waiting for the final few drivers to make their way through as well, after what was a very entertaining 2nd race of the night. An awful lot to talk about, but it's a double race victory for Nicky Taylor, and that is certainly exactly what he was hoping for from his night of racing at the Nürburgring. We will hear from our podium finishers and our driver of the day, once we've decided who that is, on the other side of this very short break. Welcome back to the virtual Nürburgring, where our second race of the night has just been completed in the VRRC Touring Car Championship, and another absolute thriller. And it is a double race victory for Nicky Taylor, the first driver all season to do that. Back-to-back wins on the same night. He won race one from second on the grid, but Nicky, you had quite a bit more overtaking to do in that second one.
Yeah, it was quite fun. I managed to pick my way out of the accidents for once, which, to be fair, for me is normally the other way around. I kind of get myself entangled in them. But yeah, I kind of just got past people when I could and just worked through calmly. And when people like Jack and that got past, I didn't really get too annoyed with it. And then coming up to the last corner with the Kyle and Joel incident, there was so much poo coming out because I went up to it and I was like, oh, there's two cars going very slowly and I've picked the wrong side here because I'm in both of the two slow cars way. But yeah, eventually I managed to get past both of them, and then just tried on Scott on the last lap, and the weight I think helped with weighing so much less that I just got a better drive out of the last corner.
Yeah, we were listening into your conversation during the ad break about the move you made on Scott. You just came off the final corner and had a slightly better acceleration than him.
Yeah, literally just come around the outside of the last corner. He was trying to squeeze it. I was kind of on the curb, and to be fair to him, he gave me a lot of room, so I have full respect for that. And Scott was defending so well for the last 3 laps. I was trying to figure out once I tried to make a move on him, then put myself back into Josh a bit. I tried to figure out where I could do him, and in the time I was behind him, but I figured it out, and then figured out in the last corner he was a bit slower because the weight in the last run out was going to be slower. So I literally just went around the outside, and the weight just pulled me straight, so I could basically pull ahead of him before the even start line and just pull to the right.
We mentioned after the first race that, a couple of good results tonight could really get you back into championship contention. In a situation like that reverse grid race where you're ducking and diving and dicing with everyone and there are so many near misses and, you found yourself at the front with a shot at the race win, does that enter your mind at that point? Does that add any pressure to you? I've got to score points for the championship, or are you just kind of enjoying the race?
I think a little bit, because at the start I was kind of I don't want to get into any incidents, because if I get into any of my normal incidents from sometimes no fault of my own, so, obviously sometimes it is my fault, but if I get into any incidents, then obviously it's going to affect me worse. So I literally just went out with the mentality of go past as many cars as possible and try and do it as cleanly and as safely as possible. So if someone goes down my inside, basically give him the corner, which I think happened with Jack on that, because he went down my inside and I was like, yeah, I'm not going to fight that because that's just going to end up in tears, and I can see there's a massive gaggle of cars ahead, so I might as well push on. But yeah, just try and work the way through the grid as cleanly and as safely as possible, really.
Well, you did that. You did it exceptionally well. It seemed clean as far as what we could see anyway. And so because of that, and because the double race win is genuinely quite a rare thing, we don't see it that often here at the VRRC, certainly in these touring cars. We have all discussed it and decided that you are our driver of the day, Nicky. So pretty much a full house. Didn't quite get pole position in qualifying, but 2 wins and driver of the day. Not a bad evening's work.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, guys. I'm just really annoyed about that qualifying, but thanks for the driver of the day. That'll go nicely.
It says a lot, doesn't it, about competitive racing drivers? They're never satisfied unless they've absolutely taken every achievement going. But Nicky should be really proud of himself for what he's achieved tonight. So too, in fairness, should our runner-up finisher, because Jack, it was almost a race win for Scott Bugner, and he really did put up a good fight.
I was going to say, Scott, you did a brilliant job, didn't you? But it wasn't quite to be Nicky's overall pace, which was a little bit sharper. What was the difference, do you think, between the two of you?
30 kilos in weight, I think.
Yeah, that would probably hurt you. It was a big factor around here, I'm guessing. I know people have been talking in the ad break about it.
Yeah, just coming off the corner, I could see Nicky was so much quicker on the exit of corners, and I tried to sort of stop it on the apex and not give him the room, and then I sort of see him go around the outside at the last corner, and I was like, he's going to do it. I could have probably run him out a bit wider, but it's not worth a strike for it. So I thought, well, he's done it cleanly, so settle for second.
Well, that's what we like to hear from racing drivers. I'll be honest, it's the fairest way of putting it, isn't it? Race 1 didn't go your way. Let's face it. What can you talk us through that one?
I think Joel and his brake fade. I think he got brake fade last week and ended up nerfing me. And I think he done it again in this one. So the one rule in motor racing is don't take out your teammate. But that's
well, I was going to say I didn't want to stir the pot too much, but I was about to point that out if you didn't give me the answer that I wanted. But it was yeah. So no hard feelings, I'm guessing, between the two of you.
Right, it's racing, and we did it in karting about 20 years ago. So it's just carrying on from there. I think he owes me a couple. I think that's what it is.
I was going to say, I think I'm sure he'll be very apologetic about it when you get back into the Discord with him. But Scott, a fantastic second place from you. Rescued a few points in the championship as well. Maybe not quite on top anymore, but obviously still within a good shout. You confident going into the next round?
Need to drop the weight. I think the weight's really hurting the high on die. Obviously, the Audi looks like it can carry it quite well. With Kyle, so I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. But qualifying's never been my strong point. And race one's just sort of trying to stay out of trouble really, and get the points where I can. But if I can drop a bit of weight, then hopefully we can stick it back on top front row of the grid.
Yeah, I heard CrossFit is good for that. No, it's good. Good luck, Scott, for the rest of the season, and we'll be speaking to you, I'm sure, over the next couple of rounds.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, second that. Well done, Scott, on the second place finish. Now, we've already announced that our Driver of the Day award has gone to Nicky Taylor. Let me tell you, it very, very nearly didn't, because Josh Martin, who finished in third place in that race, you have kept us on the edge of our seat all night long. I want to just take you back, if I can, briefly to race one. And that overtake you made around the outside against, I think it was Kyle, that was really good fun to watch. You've had some good racing tonight, haven't you?
Yeah, I had both races, battles all the way through. I was battling with Kyle for the entire of the second half of the first race, and I was in front of him. He had done a really good move on me, and then that was the repass on Kyle, and it was good. So I think I'd already tried on the inside on the lap before, so yeah, we went for the outside on the next time, and we just got him. And it was really clean as well, that whole first race.
Yeah, the thing that we did notice about your driving, and again, it's a reason why we were considering you for Driver of the Day, because you're not afraid to get stuck in and go for the late lunge and try the round the outside move, but you're not a driver that we tend to see sort of getting involved in too much argy-bargy. That's a difficult balance to find.
Yeah, I try my best to stay out of trouble. I have got myself involved in a few little crashes like recently, like kind of wrong place at the wrong time. But yeah, tonight I felt like I was driving really well in terms of staying out of trouble.
Championship-wise, that's going to be important moving forwards because you're still right in there. We'll get a look in a moment or two at the updated championship standings, but let me tell you, they're very, very close and you're very much in the fight. Looking ahead at the next three rounds, the final three tracks we're racing at, Barcelona, Imola, Brands Hatch, how confident are you that you can make that jump up now and really fight for the championship?
So I know my way around Brands Hatch very well, and I really enjoy Imola. So Bahrain's the only kind of question mark track. But yeah, so I think I've got to be probably still around third because I outscored. I think I outscored Eric tonight, and myself and him are really close on points.
I can tell you you're 5 points ahead of Eric now, but you're not quite into third place. That's all been changing around as the night goes on, but we'll get to that in a moment or two. Josh, congratulations, though, and a big thank you for keeping us thoroughly entertained tonight.
I try my best. I got to give a shout out to Dave as well.
Best fans.
Dave. Yeah.
He's been there all night, as he is every night.
Yeah, every night.
Big up, Dave.
Hey. Thanks very much, Josh. We'll speak to you next week.
Cheers. See you lot next week.
Right then, another night of racing completed in the VRRC Touring Car Championship. And, well, I've been teasing it for a little while now. Let's take a look, shall we, at the updated championship standings. And, well, oh well. Whoever wrote the script for this season's championship deserves a raise, because look at that. Not only do we have a tie for the championship lead, but it's a tie between HFT Racing teammates. Nicky Taylor came into the night 6th on points, 25 off the championship lead, and now, Jack, he shares that championship lead with his teammate Carl Felvis.
And you know what is astonishing about that we don't see, on that graphic either, is the drop points as well. I was talking about Felvers had an advantage on Scott Bugner in terms of drop points. Well, Nicky Taylor has an advantage on Kyle Felvers in terms of drop points, but it's only by 3 points. So they really do need to be pretty much on the top of their game between now and the rest of the season, which of course is Barcelona, Imola, and Brands Hatch. So it's going to be very, very interesting between those two drivers. But that's not to write off Scott Bugner either in third place. Yeah, okay, his race one didn't go particularly well, and if it wasn't for that race, then it might have been even closer than that. But it was a good rescue of a good amount of points for Scott in race number 2. And you got Josh Martin and Eric Axelson and Jack Smith as well, who was sort of beating around the bush of championship points. Maybe not Jack Smith anymore, unfortunately, but certainly the top 5. But HFT, they've really come on strong in this sort of midway through the season. I'm looking forward to seeing how they sort this one out between themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at those top 4 in the points. They've all had very different seasons, haven't they? Nicky Taylor started off not that well and has just got progressively better to the point that he's now the first 2-time winner, or first driver to do the double on one night anyway, winning both races. Kyle Felvers has been Mr. Consistency, rarely outside of the top 5. Then you've got Scott Bugner, who started really well and now seems to be fading a bit. Josh Martin has been quick on certain weeks and not so quick on other weeks. They've all had very different approaches to this, and yet here they all are, 11 points covering those top 4, and I'm really not counting out the likes of Eric Axelson or Jack Smith either, because they both have shown so far this season that they've got the pace to stick it on pole position and win races. They just need to do that at the right time, and they could gain all of those lovely points back. For reference then, it's Jack Smith, Joel Lask, Elliot Dalton Ayres, Paolo Tempera, Andy Carroll, who round out the top 10. In fact, Carroll tied for 10th position with Andy Dorman, with 6 races now remaining in the VRRC Touring Car Championship. Plenty more racing to go in this championship. We head, as we've said, to Barcelona in a week's time, the Circuit de Catalunya. Then we head to Italy, and one of my personal favourite circuits in the world, Imola, before we head back to the UK, the one British round on the championship, but it's a good one, around the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit to decide the championship. But I think we're going to have one of those properly tense and very close Brands Hatch Touring Car Championship deciders. That is not all that we've got coming up here, though, on the VRRC, is it, Jack? Plenty more for people to get involved with.
Yeah, and trust me, I can't say too much, but trust me, there is loads of planning going into next year's calendar as well, and all the different events that were going on. In fact, I know we can talk about the NASCAR event. I'll do that in a couple of minutes' time because that has been announced on social media. So I'll bring Rich Hayden in to have a chat about that in a couple of minutes. But of course, at the moment, right now, you can get involved in the time attack around Canada in the Formula One car. We bought it all through the eras. We're now bang up to date with the time attacks, and I think this has got one more week to go potentially to get your times on the board around Canada in an F1 car. One of my personal favourite tracks to drive in the F1 games, and I haven't driven it in a set, of course, I'll be completely honest, but and a great car as well, obviously. A bit of a handful, but that's why it's fantastic on a time attack ground rather than a full-on championship. So yeah, if you want to get involved in that and anything else that VRRC get up to over the next couple of weeks and couple of months, and by all means click the link down in the description below to follow to our Discord or to our website, and you can get involved. But very quickly before we move on and see out the evening, Rich, I mainly because I don't trust myself and what I can and can't reveal, please do take us through a little bit of what's got planned for next year.
Firstly, thank you, Andy. Does that mean I get a pay rise?
What have I said now?
Writing the script.
Oh, I see. I thought you might be behind this, Rick.
How long have you been commentating for us? You know our championships are close. We always produce close championships that go down to the wire. So yeah, it looks great, doesn't it? Really pleased. I can't wait for the next 3 rounds as well. Barcelona is one of my favourites. Imola, again, another one of my favourites. Brands Hatch GP is a bit of a nemesis track for me, but it always produces good racing. So yeah, can't wait for that. So yeah, Jack, what have we got coming up? So We've got a special event starting the beginning of January, 3 rounds, 3 race championships, going to be broadcast Wednesday nights. So it's slotting in between touring car and the next championship that we'll be announcing formally at the end of this week. So we're going to do 3 rounds of NASCAR on 3 ovals, 3 very different ovals. I happen to know somebody that knows quite a lot about NASCAR. He's quite close to us as well, and he's been advising on the tracks to use and how to do it. So really looking forward to that. 3 rounds.
I wouldn't listen to him.
Yeah, yeah, he knows what he's talking about, I guess. For what it's worth, yeah. And then our next time attack also starts in January, and it's 4 rounds, 2 weeks each round, and we're going to start the first time attack of 2023 with front wheel drive. So we're going to go in gradually increasing speeds front wheel drive, starting with the Fiat Abarth AC, going to the Audi TT Cup car, then to the Mini JCW Challenge, the fast one. And then we're going to round it out on the Cupra TCR with hybrid. So nice and interesting, a little bit different for the new year. And then, like I said, at the end of this week, we've got an amazing championship starting on the 1st of February with some pretty awesome prizes as well. So really looking forward to getting that out there.
I was going to say, we can't go into too much detail about any of the prizes and everything like that, but I can say that if you've been racing in the championships for a while, the prizes you may feel have got a little bit similar from championship to championship because they've been pretty much the same for the past couple of championships. But it's a bit of a special sort of change coming up soon, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, so we've got a couple of new partners on board that have very kindly donated some product for us to use as prizes and simulation related. So yeah, I'm not going to say any more than that. But one thing I will say is actually we've extended the prizes out to 5th place now. Usually we do 1st to 3rd, so we're now doing 1st to 5th. And we're also doing a prize draw for every driver that competes in at least 7 of the 8 rounds that finishes the championship outside the top 5. 2 of those drivers will be drawn for a couple of special prizes as well.
Well, there we go. So all the more reason to stay involved, even if because obviously there's more prizes up for grabs through the course of the season. Thank you very much, Rich, for coming and having a chat to us about the exciting 2023 calendar and obviously the rest of this touring car season as well. Andy, I think it's about that time that we round out the evening.
I think that's a good idea. Yes, really exciting stuff coming in the future, though, at the VRRC. We're all very much looking forward to it. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Hope you enjoyed the racing. This VRRC Touring Car Championship really does keep on delivering, doesn't it? 3 more weeks of racing to go, 6 races, at least 6 drivers who could still win the championship. You're not going to want to miss the next round at Barcelona, same time, same place in 1 week. A big thank you to Jack Oliphant for joining me on commentary, Lewis Edwards for all of his hard work on the broadcast, and of course Rich Hayden for masterminding the whole thing behind the scenes. We'll all be back again at virtual Circuit de Catalunya Barcelona in a week's time. We hope you will be too.
Woo!